Right now is the best time to get prepared. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com today to claim your 4-week food kit, plus an extra 12 days of free food. Offer ends soon. Shop MyPatriotSupply.com today. MyPatriotSupply.com.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
Hey parents, you don't need the latest gizmo slang or clothes to be a perfect parent, because kids in foster care don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers. So we build specially adapted homes at Homes for Our Troops. And thanks to our donors and supporters, this life-changing gift of freedom is provided mortgage-free to these veterans. But we need you to join us, too, in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a new guide available this month. It is titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan. Mike, when you look at the big reasons that someone might want to undertake trust planning and how that dovetails with financial planning, what are the big items that come up for a lot of people?
Yeah, for most common reasons, there's 4 that I think about. One, in certain states and across the country, there's an estate tax, and so there's trusts that can help you mitigate the cost of that estate tax for future generations. There's trusts that can allow you to do sorts of bloodline planning. Maybe you have minor children and you're worried about passing away young. You can have trusts that are set up to deal with that situation. You have trusts that can avoid probate. And then the fourth one is sometimes a trust that might help deal with creditor protection. Sometimes a nursing home would be one of those creditors.
When we talk about financial planning, generally we're talking about things such as budgeting or investment allocations and things like that, and making that work to get you the money when you want it. How do you view trusts as fitting into that as well?
Well, it's one of those boxes that you need to check, and it goes along with other estate planning documents like a will, like a healthcare proxy. But important for most people, especially those in New England, to at least have the conversation around trusts and whether or not it fits into their strategy.
The guide, again, is titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan, and it is available for you to request at no cost. All you have to do is call 800-393-4001. The title, again, is Trusts in Your Financial Plan, And the way to request the guide is by calling 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We pride ourselves on being able to support veterans in their time of greatest need, ensuring they receive the protections they deserve. For over 100 years, the DAV of Massachusetts has helped thousands of veterans with housing, transportation, and medical assistance, and you can help too. Please visit dav5k.boston and make a donation today. That's dav5k.boston.
The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It's Mike Armstrong, Paul Lane, and Ben Kitchen with you on a Tuesday morning, the day after a huge market rally yesterday on the news, on the heel of the news on the Chinese trade tariffs and negotiations that were done over in Switzerland over the weekend. Yesterday, markets, S&P 500 finished up 3.25%. Today, we'll continue to discuss the fallout from those negotiations, where things may go next. We have a few more details as well in terms of the de minimis rules and how that's going to apply. We're starting to hear more and more hints about a tax bill making its way through Congress, but I think we probably have to start off this morning here, Paul, with the inflation read that we got. We got a read on inflation about an hour and a half ago, and really kind of clear, good news. There wasn't much in there to be disappointed over. So let's start with the headline news. Top line inflation year over year running 2.3%. When we strip out that food and energy, it's a little bit hotter because energy's been helping you out over the last 12 months. So stripping out food and energy, you're sitting at 2.8%. But quite honestly, anything over 3 I take as a win right now. We did bump up a little bit in the month of April compared to March. We saw We saw deflation in the month of March, which we
Right.
haven't seen in a long time. We bumped back up to 0.2% month over month there. But honestly, any of the areas that you might have been expecting a bump from tariffs didn't really show up, at least in the month of April.
No, and perhaps it's too early necessarily for them to make their impacts through this inflation report, but because we've heard of businesses burning through excess inventory and using other measures to perhaps mitigate some of the price increase impacts there. But overall, you really can't be critical of this report, Mike. The 2.3% year-over-year number is a strong figure. Also, you didn't have as much of a benefit from energy that you did in the prior month. We saw almost a 2.5% decline in energy prices in the month of March. That was a large contributor to that headline decline that Mike was speaking about there. And then if you look at just what was leading to the increases that we saw in the month of April, largely it was shelter, up about 0.4% month over month. It was responsible for about half of the move that we saw for the month of April. Shelter makes up about a third of all the components of the monthly inflation report that we get there. Also notable, the prices for used cars and trucks was up about 1.5%. I believe that's a year over year number, but certainly seeing a significant increase there on some of the used car prices with some of the tariff impacts there. That's something you did see perhaps a trickle down effect there in that category.
Yeah, I don't know. I hesitate to call it that because month over month it declined. So taking a look at the key areas that I would look for in this report to see any hints of tariff front-running effects on prices, right? Because that's what everybody's been talking about is, people are going to be buying cars, buying apparel, buying toys, buying all sorts of stuff that comes from China in order to get ahead of it, and the dealers are going to raise prices. Well, month over month, you saw new cars new cars were flat month over month after being flat for the last 3 months. You had used cars and trucks down 0.5% month over month. Apparel down 0.2%. I went and looked through the back appendix to look at toys, games, hobbies, and playground equipment, and those were down month over month as well. So yeah, I don't see much in the way of effect from tariffs thus far. I think any of those concerns seem to be overblown thus far. And with the new news on the Chinese agreement on tariffs and trade, reducing the rate down to 30% here, we may see an effect on prices, and we should talk about that a little bit. But some of those worst concerns that we have been talking about, empty store shelves come July 4th at dollar store retailers, vehicle shortages, parts shortages, those types of scenarios seem for the moment to be off the table. And I think there's just a general sigh of relief on maybe not the part of individuals, because I don't think that there had been an elevated level of concern quite yet from them, but
probably
from
not
CEOs.
A proper understanding on the individual side of things.
I don't know many people who were telling me I'm loading up on things right now because I'm worried about empty store shelves come July.
Right.
There just wasn't either they were ignoring it or they just didn't buy it, whatever it was. There didn't seem to be that big rush to the storefront in April or recently because of all this.
Yeah, it seems like what's suggested is that perhaps the back to school season or the holiday shopping season might see some of the shortages because of this. I guess you'd call it a freeze for the last, what's it been, 4 to 5 weeks since the initial, probably longer than that, just with the negative sentiment on China in general, maybe 6 to 8 weeks that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think it through. 6 weeks, probably April 2nd, maybe late March through now.
Right.
You've been holding off on necessarily bringing things into the country because of these tariff threats.
So perhaps that is where you'll see an impact. But for the most part, a sigh of relief, it seems like, for a lot of importers out there with the news yesterday. That 30% level that it sits at today in previous times would have been a very difficult, challenging number to overcome, but coming off the heels of 145% on the import side of things, it at least allows businesses to kind of move forward for those that import heavily from China.
So thinking about what inflation might come, what it means also for the Federal Reserve, taking a look right now at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange's FedWatch tool. This is publicly available. We don't have a subscription or anything. You can go to just cmegroup.com and check it out yourselves. But the next meeting is June 18th. It is widely anticipated the Fed will be holding rates at the current 4.25% level. That has not changed much over the last couple of days, but did change a little bit over the last week as the Chinese trade tariffs kind of walked their way backwards. And the way that I'm reading that anyway is the concern about recession was so high with even just these Chinese tariffs in that many people were betting on a Fed that might need to cut rates as early as June. With this negotiation done, it does not seem likely. And in fact, if I go out to the July 30th meeting, there's still a pretty low likelihood that rates end up getting cut there. And so I've been thinking about this a little bit, which is we were talking a lot about how with tariffs, there are a number of concerns for businesses. Where am I going to get my supply? Is the consumer going to be ready to buy it at elevated prices? How much of this am I going to eat? What's it going to do with my margins? And all of those different things. But my main takeaway was that with all of that going on, I'm more worried about recession than I am inflation. If the tariffs were to stay in place for any prolonged period of time, inflation might rear its ugly head briefly, but ultimately there wouldn't be enough cash sloshing around in the system to cause a prolonged period of inflation. With tariffs moving off to the sideline, with every retailer out there rushing, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, to get anything they can find from China over to the U.S. over the next 90 days, paying extra in freight costs to be the first one on the ship, paying extra to the manufacturer, the factory that's been shut down for the last 5 weeks and not supplying these goods. I just do wonder if now with that combined with a tax bill, I still don't think we're talking about prolonged periods of inflation, but does it actually
stoke up inflation
and, reduce the probability of a rate cut this year? I think it's kind of compelling argument, which is funny, again, because if you place it all out, you're saying, hey, they cut tariffs and inflation's going to be higher as a result of that. I think it's a possibility. I think it's a weird series of events that gets you there, but I think it's a possibility based now on where these expectations are and the actions that companies are taking right now to front run this and get everything they can into the U.S. as quickly as possible. We're going to be facing some of those weird scenarios like we did in 2020 with ports backed up, not enough drivers getting the stuff off the trucks, and I'll be very interested to see what the next 6 weeks look like on that front. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk a bit more about these tariffs. We now have some data on the revenue that was brought in, and then what exactly is going on in factories in China. How long is it going to take these CEOs to get their stuff over here? That's next here on the Financial Exchange.
Market volatility is at its highest point since the pandemic. Keep it here for the most comprehensive coverage of the global trade war. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network. New Englanders love the Caribbean, and now there's a Caribbean travel channel available for you to learn all about Caribbean culture while you're planning your next trip to your favorite island. The TravelShareIt.com marketplace is loaded with information about the arts, festivals, food, and music throughout the Caribbean, and is an interactive website featuring daily travel deals to any island of your choice. Book your next Caribbean vacation on the most comprehensive travel channel for the islands, TravelShareIt.com. That's TravelShareIt.com. There are critical mistakes you can make during the estate planning process that may have a damaging effect on your financial strategy. Cushing & Dolan's new guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. Get yours today and make the right decisions to protect your assets. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699 or request it online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-398 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Creating the right estate plan to help secure your future takes effort. Cushing & Dolan are experts in estate planning. Their new guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. In it, you'll learn how to make the right decisions to always protect your assets while avoiding costly mistakes, any one of which could have a dramatic and damaging effect on your financial strategy. As an example, if you've created a trust more than 10 years ago and haven't updated it since, you're setting yourself up for problems. Don't take chances with the assets you've worked so hard to attain. Cushing & Dolan's new guide will help you address issues like this, so call right now, 866-848-5699, and ask for your copy of our new free guide called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Wall Street Watch, a full update on the market's performance to date. Weekdays at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John and are consistently voted one of the top Caribbean vacation destinations. Enjoy world-class cuisine, pristine beaches, rich history, and a vibrant nightlife. Book your trip now to visit America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. For reservations and more information, go to visitusvi.com. That's visitusvi.com.
Last month, tariff receipts topped some $16 billion for the month of April. That's a record. It helped cut the budget deficit a bit. So great news. We only ran a $1.05 trillion budget deficit so far this year compared to last year. The previous month in March, before some of these tariffs went into effect, was $8.75 billion. So effectively a doubling with the baseline 10% as well as the China tariffs, which from what we've been reading so far, anyone who paid that 145% tariff rate coming in from China is not seeing any reimbursement of that down to the 30%. So you paid it, you imported the stuff with the stuff in effect, you're not getting a refund on this, although anything new coming into the U.S. will face the just 30% rate. Again, this is a key piece here because it is being used in the budget framework for the tax bills. They are looking at this as tariff revenue that is going to exist for a period of time. And quite honestly, I guess I don't really know, but the 10% baseline tariff rate that we are seeing, for instance, still on the UK, even though those negotiations have passed, I don't know that that's going anywhere. Right? I'm really confused and unsure as to whether or not that is negotiable away.
It does seem like it would be the floor for most negotiations, just given our standing with the UK. It's important for us to sort of contextualize if there were to be this baseline 10% across the board for all imports. In 2024, the U.S. imported about $3.3 trillion of goods into the country. So if you just flatline out that 10%, that would be about $330 billion that would be raised through tariffs there. We're running, as you mentioned, from a fiscal year perspective, a anticipated deficit of $1.9 trillion. So you'd be talking about cutting off of 17% of the annual fiscal projected deficit. So while it helps, either way, anything helps. And I'm certainly all for scrutiny and focus on that fiscal year deficit. It's important to note that it's not an end-all be-all. It is part of a solution, but cuts have to come from other places. So I just wanted to contextualize a little bit as how much revenue could be raised. And that's, again, just with a baseline 10% across the board. That $1.9 trillion deficit is 6% of GDP and the third largest in history. It's really significant. The other piece that we're battling here on the debt side of things is that we have $36 trillion of national debt. The net interest payments on those treasuries, because they've remained at more elevated rates compared to what we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years, the fact that you can get a 4% CD sort of ties into the rates on treasuries being in and around those levels. It was now $89 billion, the net interest payments on the total national debt in the month of April, higher than everything except for Social Security. So these items are really important when you head into the budgeting of the country and trying to focus on getting this deficit under control.
And you bring up an interesting point, and I'm going to relate it to our next story on taxes, because back on April 8th and April 9th, what we were seeing in markets, in equity markets, it was messy, and that was getting a lot of the headlines. But what was really happening that I think was far more important had to do with debt markets.
Yes. And
what we were seeing in debt markets was the yield on U.S. government debt going through the roof. Mm-hmm. It was up 20, 30 basis points at times on debt instruments that do not usually move that much. And there's a lot of conjecture and guesswork as to what was going on there, but it was probably a combination of reciprocal tariffs hitting a bunch of countries that didn't plan for it. Japan, China, the United Kingdom, Germany, all taking a look at what they were facing and saying one of two things, and probably realistically it's probably a combination of them. One, this is going to make our economy and the U.S. economy far weaker if this stays in place, and we are sitting on a whole bunch of government debt denominated in U.S. dollars. That could be a problem for us. Two, we might be able to influence this president if we start dumping this debt away and sinking a lot of the feasibility of the economy. Because here's why the yield on government debt matters, right? If you're taking a look, where are we right now, Paul, on the 10-year?
4.5%, 4.48%.
Okay. So if you are sitting at 5.25% instead on that 10-year Treasury yield because a bunch of foreign holders are selling that stuff in order to buy their own currency and stabilize things, even if they're not intentionally doing it just to ruin your economy, you suddenly have mortgage rates at 8%. You have car loan rates shooting up by a percentage point or two. You have a whole lot of things in the system that don't work, let alone a whole bunch of hedge funds that blow up overnight and become a huge problem for the entire financial system. And so that, more than much else, I think is what paused the Trump administration's view on reciprocal tariffs. It wasn't the pain in the stock market. It probably wasn't any foreign leader calling over and over and saying, "What are you doing?" It was probably the threat of, hey, people aren't going to be able to afford mortgages, and you're probably going to have to bail out a whole bunch of financial institutions. That really works contrary to your viewpoint of, hey, we're a Main Street administration. We're trying to help out the everyday person. Sorry, go ahead.
And it doesn't do anything for the $36 trillion that you have on the balance sheet. Your ability to refinance that at lower rates goes out the window and only gets exacerbated by the fact that when you're going to refinance it, it would potentially be higher if the rates stay at that level.
Tomorrow's problem, as far as I'm concerned. That's always, the next guy will have to figure that piece out. Like, if you're in that White House seat, your biggest concern is, okay, well, what if I have to go bail out a bunch of hedge fund billionaires? Right. That's not going to be a great look. My question would be, it seems like we're on a path of de-escalation. I think we are going to continue that path. We are also clearly on a path of tax cuts. We're going to cover what those are starting to look like, what the priorities seem to be, and some things that look like they're going to land in there, with the knowledge that all of it can get reshaped and change a little bit. But most estimates that I'm seeing are for tax cuts to increase the deficit by some $2.5 to $5 trillion over the next decade, even when you consider the effect of tariff revenue coming in. And so I guess my question is, do we get a repeat of that episode? I don't think so, because we're not continuing to escalate with our trade partners. We seem to be on this path of de-escalation, and hey, we've suspended the reciprocal tariffs, we've suspended the stuff on China, we've made a deal with the United Kingdom. But are there any bond vigilantes out there who take a look at a tax bill that's working its way through Congress and say, we're not gonna finance this stuff anymore? I don't think we're there, but I only would say that we could be there because of what happened on April 8th, which was pretty unexpected.
Yeah, I would think that it would be far more likely that there was some reversal in de-escalation policy that would spook the bond markets further than overly getting concerned about a tax bill that could be spread out over a 10-year period. But hey, every day there's something new. You could be surprised.
Let's go ahead and take a quick break here. We've got Wall Street Watch, which is coming up next. We're also going to take a sidestep away from tariffs for the time being, and I want to talk about the new Republican-led tax plan making its way through Congress. That's next here on the Financial Exchange.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
There are critical mistakes you can make during the estate planning process that may have a damaging effect on your financial strategy. Cushing & Dolan's new guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. Get yours today and make the right decisions to protect your assets. Call 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699 or request it online at legalexchangeshow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV of Massachusetts has helped me and countless others adjust to civilian life through a variety of incredible programs. Through our local Veterans Assistance Program, we provide necessary services to veterans and their communities, such as food shopping, landscaping, and companionship, but we need your support. You can help by making a donation today. Please visit dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today, we're talking about the top estate planning mistakes to avoid. Todd, a lot of people create their estate plan, but there are some that don't actually transfer assets into it. Can you explain why this is such a big mistake?
Sure. I mean, I'm going to try to explain it both from a revocable and an irrevocable planning standpoint. With the revocable, if you don't put assets in there, you end up leaving them owned perhaps jointly if you're married, and designated beneficiaries and the like. But if everything goes to the spouse when one dies, then you've completely avoided your estate plan. In other words, you've set your trust up, but you went around it by leaving everything to the spouse instead of going through it by funding the trust and cramming down the assets to shelter some from estate taxes on the first death, so there's less taxed on the second death. And ultimately, on the second death, if you don't plan, there could be a probate problem because everything would go to probate if it's in their own name. The other big reason is with an irrevocable trust, of course, not funding it also can result in estate tax problems by the same way it did with the revocable trust. But in addition to not funding them with the irrevocable, you don't even begin the 5-year waiting period to get the assets protected from the nursing home. So there's a much bigger problem not funding an irrevocable trust versus not funding a revocable trust. So make sure you fund your trust if you do your planning.
Well, luckily, Todd Lutzke and the estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have written a brand new guide that details the estate planning blunders to avoid. You can request this brand new guide by simply calling 866-848-5699, 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Stocks are a little mixed here at about 10:34 today, and stocks are mixed off the news of the annual inflation rate hitting the lowest level since 2021. The Dow Jones is off about 118 points or 0.28%. The S&P 500 is up 0.75% or 42 points, and the NASDAQ is up well over 1% at 1.35%. UnitedHealth shares are down 14% after the company announced it was suspending its 2025 outlook due to higher than expected medical expenditures. UnitedHealth also announced CEO Andrew Whitty was stepping down effective immediately for personal reasons. Stephen Hemsley will replace Whitty as chief executive. Coinbase shares are up over 16% following the announcement that the crypto trading platform will join the S&P 500, taking effect before trading on May 19th. Coinbase will replace Discover Financial Services. Hertz Global Holdings stock is down 19% after first quarter results came in worse than expected. Hertz reported an adjusted loss of $1.12 per share on $1.81 billion of revenue. Analysts surveyed were looking for a loss of 97 cents per share and $2 billion of revenue. The company said that it had $1.2 billion in liquidity at the end of March. Under Armour shares are up 0.5% after Under Armour beat revenue expectations for its fiscal fourth quarter and lifted its adjusted earnings per share guidance for the fiscal first quarter. And finally, Boeing shares are up 2.5% following a Bloomberg report that China has lifted its ban on Boeing deliveries. Domestic airlines and government agencies are being told this week that deliveries can resume, the report said, citing people familiar with the matter. I am Ben Kitchen, and that was Wall Street Watch.
President Trump will be speaking shortly on his Middle East trip from the Saudi Investment Forum, presumably announcing some investments there. We'll cover that if there's anything to be covered, but it sounds like there is rumors of some deal-making and investments to be done in the United States on that. And then the other piece of breaking news that we just saw come across here was layoffs at Microsoft. Microsoft is announcing that they will be cutting 3% of all headcount. They had 228,000 total employees as of last June. Presumably that's a little bit higher now than the 228, but not an insignificant level of job cuts. Obviously not something that's going to show up in probably big high-level data, but interesting to me from a few standpoints. One, Microsoft has been arguably, first or second leader in the tech play space for the last couple of years here. It's them or NVIDIA. Take your pick as to who you think is the dominant player there. But benefiting strongly from their AI investments, benefiting strongly from their partnerships with NVIDIA, and really not subject to any sort of disruption from anything tariff-related so far as we could tell.
No, to me, and again, this just is breaking news, so I don't have the exact specifics behind it. I would imagine that what we've heard from Microsoft is a laser focus on investment and development of their AI capabilities, whether that's on their Azure cloud services front, grabbing more revenue there, their partnership with OpenAI. They've invested a significant amount of money in OpenAI and ChatGPT, or the parent of the ChatGPT model. That would be my guess here, just interpreting this news, is that it's likely cutting out areas that don't have influence on that profit center. Mm-hmm. And the rough quotes here is just cutting out some middle management. So I don't think that I would point to this as, this means there's a weakness in the technology sector or some of the areas that have been a catalyst for strong market performance, but more so just a strategic move by Microsoft. Again, but that's just me sort of going off the cuff trying to interpret the headline here.
So if the total employment level is about the same as June, we're looking at approximately 7,000 employees globally that would be cut. So not, like I said, not an insignificant level of employment being cut here. I think the interesting question to me in this space, which again, the tech space, especially on the recruiting, advertising side of things, has been a really difficult employment market to be in for those that are in there, because there's been all sorts of hiring freezes and pushes just to be lean anywhere possible in order to make those artificial intelligence investments. But here's the question that is going to be raised to every tech firm out there now for the next few earnings calls. Microsoft cut jobs. Why did they do it? Why aren't you doing it? What are you supposed to do other than compare yourself to Microsoft? I don't really care if you are an AI chip maker, if you are a tech advertising social media company. The focus is now going to be on headcount because of this, even though it is, again, relatively modest. And Microsoft's a bit of a trendsetter. So I would not be shocked to see this spill over to companies like IBM, like Intel, like Amazon that need to compete with Microsoft in here. And this is an early first. The stock for Microsoft, by the way, up about 7% this year, but flat on a day when the rest of the market, the NASDAQ especially, up about 1.33%, being dragged higher by NVIDIA. So again, just find it interesting. I don't really have a big takeaway as to why they're cutting this headcount, other than the same things that we've been describing. Let's take a look over at the Republican tax plans that are working their way through Congress here, and what seems to be some of the focus, how it might benefit or detract from folks here in the New England area. What rumors are we hearing so far? Obviously, SALT is making a big headline because of the arguing that's going on over it, and does affect a lot of New England. So let's start with the state and local tax deduction. What's changed over the last few years, and what seems to be the focus here?
Yeah, so important to know where it sits today is the SALT, state and local taxes. You're able to deduct $10,000 off of your federal income tax return if you are itemizing based on what your property taxes and local taxes are. That number was put in back in 2017 with the Tax and Jobs Cut Act. A lot of states like New York and New Jersey that have very high property taxes and local taxes have been trying to bump up that level or eliminate it entirely. Massachusetts and some of the other New England ones would be candidates too. What's now been proposed is a $30,000 cap on state and local income taxes on that SALT. That would be triple where it is today. That would shrink that $30,000 when income exceeds over $400,000. So that is what has been rumored. And again, important with all of these ideas that we're going to go through here. This is just stuff that they're working through. This is not something that is set in stone by any means.
So just to kind of play out that example, let's say you own a home in Natick, Massachusetts, as a just example here. I'm seeing one over in Natick going for $840,000. It's a 3-bed, 1.5 bath home. You are looking at a property tax bill on that sucker of $5,000 a year. Let's say you're also working because you need to be able to afford the mortgage, and I'm just going to call it, let's see, if you're going to afford a home like that, what do you need to have for an income here? Your principal and interest payments are going to come to $4,400 today. Insurance might be $300, so
probably $250 to $300.
Let's call it $250,000 of income in Massachusetts in order to afford that 3-bed, 1.5-bath home, which I know for those listening in areas outside of New England, you're saying, what the hell is wrong with you people? I agree. I am trying to make a point of all of this. But you're looking at an income tax bill on that income of about $13,000. Add that to your property taxes. You are currently paying just, between income taxes and property taxes, forget about any sales tax or anything like that if you were to buy a car or anything, of about $17,000 a year. Used to be you would take that entire amount deducted off of your federal taxes. Now you're capped at 10. Under this proposal, you'd be capped at 30, so you'd be able to deduct all of that. The question here seems to be from those Republicans in New York and elsewhere, the problem they have is, A, they don't think 30 grand is high enough. And if you own, if you're a big Republican donor and living out on Long Island and paying $30,000 in property taxes plus the income taxes on your income, you're right. It's not high enough to make a dent. 2 would be if they're phasing it out at $400,000. Again, it helps the average guy who's, making some money here in parts of New England or the Northeast and paying a fair bit in taxes. But it doesn't help your hedge fund manager that lives in New York that wants a lot of deductions on their taxes. And so I can see why they're putting up the fight. I'm sure they have very large donors who say, hey, this SALT change doesn't really do anything for me, so vote against it until you get something bigger in.
The other piece that I've heard a lot of client feedback on, so I at least want to touch upon, is this idea that Social Security wouldn't be taxed. Yep. That was one of the things that's rumored about. Since they don't have the direct recourse in order to make that change on eliminating the taxes on Social Security benefits, what's been proposed, again, just in this initial bill, is that for those who are over the age of 65, they get an additional $1,500 on the standard deduction. There's now been rumored that since they can't tweak the Social Security benefit taxation, that standard deduction would increase from $1,500 to an additional $4,000 on top of that.
Wow.
So $5,500 in total on top of the normal married couple joint filing as a standard deduction, which is, again, in or around $30,000, Mike, right?
And is there a legal reason that they can't touch that, or is it just I don't know if there is a rules-based provision that makes it impossible for them to touch Social Security, or if it's just how much it would cost?
So what they mentioned here, straight out of the Wall Street Journal piece, is it's an alternative to removing taxes on Social Security benefits, which can't be done in full through the budget process the Republicans are currently using.
Got it.
Also important to note that that additional standard deduction would be for those people who have. It would get phased out if you make over $150,000 as a married couple or $75,000 as an individual for those over the age of 65, that additional standard deduction.
Bad news out there for about 20 people across the country. Deductions associated with purchasing sports teams would be limited now under the new
what's it, Chisholm? Chisholm, the new Boston Celtics.
Darn it.
6.2, what was it, $6 billion, Ben? Yeah, that's... It's a bummer.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, I do want to touch on a little bit of self-driving car news. It's been a while since we've talked about self-driving cars, and bad news for everybody. They are heading to Boston. Quick break. We'll be back with that next.
The global trade war is in full swing. How long will it last is anyone's guess. Keep it here for the most up-to-date information plus breaking news every day, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod is perfect for your next New England vacation. Located just off Route 6 in Hyannis, the resort has everything you need to enjoy an incredible week with your family or a quick weekend getaway. Along with first-class accommodations and food, Fins Up Water Park is packed with aquatic adventures that will keep the kids entertained for hours. The summer season is coming soon, so make plans today for a fun-filled vacation at Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod. For more information and to book your trip, visit MargaritavilleResortsCapeCod.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Creating the right estate plan to help secure your future takes effort. Cushing & Dolan are experts in estate planning. Their new guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. In it, you'll learn how to make the right decisions to always protect your assets while avoiding costly mistakes, any one of which could have a dramatic and damaging effect on your financial strategy. As an example, if you've created a trust more than 10 years ago and haven't updated it since, you're setting yourself up for problems. Don't take chances with the assets you've worked so hard to attain. Cushing & Dolan's new guide will help you address issues like this, so call right now, 866-848-5699, and ask for your copy of our new free guide called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Like us on YouTube and get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The Financial Exchange is proud of our partnership with the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. This year's 5K is Saturday, November 8th, and registration is now open. The race has sold out each of the past 4 years, and slots will fill up quickly, so don't delay. Visit dav5k.boston today and reserve your spot, or join our team here at the Financial Exchange by registering under Team TFE. That's Saturday, November 8th for this year's DAV 5K. Sign up now at dav5k.boston.
A few years ago, Waymo entered a few different cities and began offering driverless rides to people that were in the area. I've been in, I think it's been 5 Waymo driverless rides now so far. 2 of them were in San Francisco, and then I've done 3 in Phoenix as well. It's fun. It's entertaining. It's also really cheap. They're probably losing a lot of money on the idea because they're driving around Jaguars with tens of thousands of dollars of camera equipment on there. But they are, I don't know, it's just kind of a fun little thing to do. But there's some downsides. I mean, they are slow. They don't, at least in Phoenix where I was, they weren't getting on highways to get to the destination. We were going to a minor league ball game in Phoenix, and it just took another 5 to 7 minutes than it would have in an Uber driver who's swerving through traffic and going above the speed limit. But it's entertaining and kind of cool, and there's still a steering wheel up front, and it's just driving itself. So I thought it was a very entertaining experience. I don't know that I would put my kids in him, but it was still pretty entertaining. According to a Waymo spokesperson, they are sending a test fleet to Boston in May and June in order to map out the city's streets. Now, I want to be clear about what this means. It does not mean that there are going to be driverless Waymo vehicles in downtown Boston, as entertaining as that might be. That is not going to be what's happening here. Instead, during these road trips, we send a limited fleet of vehicles to each city for several weeks. Trained human autonomous specialists remain behind the wheel at all times. Our visits begin with manual driving through the densest and most complex parts of each city, including downtown areas and freeways.
So it'll likely take Waymo about 6 months to figure out Boston.
No, I mean, I think it'll take them 6 months to figure out that it would never work in Boston.
Right.
I'm trying to think. I mean, even compared to San Francisco, the idea of them navigating Boston streets to me is just kind of ludicrous. I think San Francisco is probably the easiest comparison, though, of where they do operate. I mean, Phoenix, it's all flat. It's on a grid. It's in a desert. You're not dealing with a whole lot of weather issues that prevent you from doing anything, nor are you dealing with other weather issues in San Francisco. So that's also fair here. But these poor driverless cars are going to have no luck navigating the Boston streets. I mean, I'm impressed. The ones in San Francisco, I dealt with, a double parked car that it successfully navigated around. I had to make a weird left turn into, stopped oncoming traffic. A lot of things that were impressive. But it's just not going to work in Boston. This poor suicidal Jaguar is just going to be not very happy after it spends 2 months driving around Boston. And just stop. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work here. But nonetheless, they are tackling what would undoubtedly be one of the most difficult cities in the United States.
You're obviously being tongue-in-cheek. It will get there at some point. Autonomous vehicles will get there at some point. I don't know if it's the next 6 months or so, but
in May and June, yes, I am genuinely unsure of whether or not they would be able to handle things December through February.
Well, that's the big thing. All jokes aside, the feedback here is that autonomous vehicles have had difficulty driving in the snow. And yeah, Boston, tough.
The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations, and recently 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Mayguns Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
So to answer your question from before, Paul, will they ever get there? I think so. But genuinely, I don't know how you go about operating a driverless car if, on your average trip, a third of the lines are covered by snow. I mean, think about driving in Boston. How many trips have you taken either on the highway or in a downtown area? Not just Boston, but any city or town around New England where you're driving through and it wasn't a snowstorm in the last 20 minutes. It just happened to be one in the last couple days, and you can't see any of the lines. They're covered in sand. They're covered in snow that's been set on the side. I just don't know that it's going to be even there in the next decade in Boston or anywhere in the north. Let's take a quick break. Markets are mixed at the moment, but NASDAQ leading things higher, up 1.5%. We'll have a full recap and more in the second hour of the Financial Exchange.
cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined. For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit goredforwomen.org today to learn more.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams. Your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled, regardless of your medical conditions, as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818. Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network. WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM. Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
Did you outgrow your timeshare and now you want out? But you can't. You can't sell it, and you can't get out of the contract. Imagine trying to get out of your mortgage. That's what a timeshare is. You can't just call up the bank and say, I don't want to pay it anymore. But we may be able to help you do just that. Listen, a timeshare maybe for you once was a great thing, but now you don't use it much. And they are not easy to get rid of. Plus, you do have to pay for it every month. Qualified timeshare owners can get out of their contract legally and permanently without ruining your credit or even filing bankruptcy. And imagine, no more mortgage payment or fees. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline qualification line now. It's free to learn more.
800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. 800-455-7967. That's 800-455-7967. Paid for by Timeshare Defense.
The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school. Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod is perfect for your next New England vacation. Located just off Route 6 in Hyannis, the resort has everything you need to enjoy an incredible week with your family or a quick weekend getaway. Along with first-class accommodations and food, Fins Up Water Park is packed with aquatic adventures that will keep the kids entertained for hours. The summer season is coming soon, so make plans today for a fun-filled vacation at Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod. For more information and to book your trip, visit MargaritavilleResortsCapeCod.com.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan. Mike, a lot of times when we talk about financial planning, it's with the idea of having your money available to you to use when you need to use it. How do trusts work to kind of keep that idea going, not just for yourself, but also for the next generation as well? Sure, and it doesn't always need to be the next generation, because how many times have you heard somebody say, hey, look, I raised my kids, they're in a good spot, I want the less check I write to bounce. I'm spending this money. But, there can be situations where trust can benefit even a married couple in the event of a lawsuit or a nursing home that's unexpected, especially if there's a big age gap. That can be critical. But for next generation planning, it gets much more common, and especially in the New England area where most states have an estate tax, there's a lot that can be done from a multi-generational planning perspective to, if not eliminate those taxes, at least mitigate them to a large degree. I mean, you think about here in New England, the value of your primary residence, which you sell, it might not be subject to capital gains tax, but if you die, is most certainly subject to estate taxes. There's a lot that can be done in the way of trust planning. Our guide this month is titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan, and you can request it by calling 800-393-4001. Again, that number is 800-393-4001, and the guide this month is titled Trusts in Your Financial Plan and details a number of ideas about how you can fit trusts into your financial plan.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. This is the Financial Exchange with Mike Armstrong and Paul Lane.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Financial Exchange. It's Mike, Paul, and Ben with you on a Tuesday morning, and we continue to digest the news from Monday morning of the negotiation of a deal with China, or at least the suspension of the very high level of tariffs we had been facing with China. The newly agreed upon deal sets those tariff levels at 30% for Chinese-made goods coming into the United States, 10% for American-made goods going into China. There is also a reduction in the price paid for the de minimis goods, so these would be direct imports that are finished products coming into the U.S. from China. Say you buy something on Temu or Shen, that is coming down into the 50% range. On the heels of that, you have just about every retailer calling up their suppliers in China and saying, load up the ships, fire up the factories again. We want to get this stuff into the U.S. within the next 90 days, not knowing what comes next. Chuck and I talked about this. Like, are there some out there who are saying, we already got down from 145 to 30. Do I just wait this out and see if we get even lower? My sense would be no. My sense would be no. I'm just going to pay the 30 while I know what it is and just suck it up and deal with that rather than try and skirt this thing on the tail end, assuming that it'll be lower at the end of it. But nonetheless, the activity seems to be fire up the factories, get this stuff over to the United States. The other big announcement that came yesterday on just right after was the president's plan to slash drug prices and what he is attempting to do there. And so that's where we're going to start the show today, is that attempted plan to cut those drug prices and what it might mean for you. Look, this is not a new issue, all right? You go on the campaign trail anywhere in Vermont, for example, you talk to plenty of people who go across the border into Canada to get their drugs at a cheaper price than they can here in the United States, even with Medicare coverage and things along those lines. And it's been a constant area of debate as to how it should be handled. So what's been announced so far has been an executive order to slash those drug prices and give the United States a most favored nation status that would allow or force drug companies to price their drugs at the same rate that they do other countries. Not the first time it's been attempted.
Right.
Not an act of Congress. I think it's going to be difficult to actually enact something like this. But the goal is to reduce drug prices by 59 to 80%. That's an ambitious target. Let's just call it that.
It is. And the difficulty that you have is that in some of these other foreign countries across the globe, they are products of a single-payer health system. So
right.
It is much different than the infrastructure in place on the pharmaceutical drug side of things here in the United States, which is kind of a patchwork of public and private insurers, and it relies on middlemen for benefit negotiation, the likes of CVS Caremark and others out there. Is Cardinal the other big one that does price negotiation on the pharmaceutical side of things? So
I'll agree with you.
It's very different. That's the point of it. And what levers would have to be tweaked here is either the drug manufacturer is going to say we'll lower our price. Not a lot of incentive for any business out there to lower its prices, or foreign countries say we'll pay more. Again, not a lot of incentive on that end of things either. And it's a long and arduous process to get any type of negotiations through with these drug manufacturers. So while ambitious and a lot of us could get on board with this idea, difficult to implement readily.
Like there are plenty of pitfalls of the American healthcare system, and I have no love for health insurance companies that make those decisions as to what they cover and what they don't. But one of the advantages happens to be that if the drug works, you can generally get it in the United States and get it covered by health insurance more readily, especially if it's a new drug, than some of the other single-payer healthcare systems out there who will negotiate with the pharmaceuticals and say, no, we're not going to cover that drug at all, and it might not even be available in the United Kingdom, for example. That obviously creates a huge burden on the U.S. system because the prices end up being a lot higher without a single-payer negotiator that's, taking a look at, okay, we're going to buy this drug, we're not going to pay for this drug, we are going to, allow this procedure and not that one. And it also makes it incredibly complex for any I don't practically really understand how a pharmaceutical company will go about this, right? So do I have to go offer every U.S. insurer the lowest price that I'm offering to any other nation? Do I have to take an average of all those other prices and make sure that I'm there? Does every U.S. insurance company, even if they only have a few thousand participants, need to be offered the lowest price that I'm facing elsewhere? It is pretty complicated. One thing is true. I mean, we are a huge market. And so, if, for instance, a drug is getting priced cheaper in France with a much smaller population, I would think that we do have some negotiating power on that. But it's also one of these items that, given our free market system, I don't know how the president executes this via executive action.
Probably your best bet is going through Medicare, just the leverage that it has, because it just represents such a huge swath of the population that rely on many drugs, just given their age range. That would probably be your best starting point, is to leverage the negotiating power that you have from Medicare to get better prices on some drugs out there. That probably seems like the best bet. But anything with the healthcare system is just complex and very arduous to figure out. So we're just a couple armchair quarterbacks here who have certainly no expertise.
Here are things I know. It's amazingly complicated.
Yes.
It is not a new issue. It has been getting campaigned on for 20, 30 years. And the last thing I know is that the drug lobby, the pharmaceutical lobby, is one of the most powerful ones that we have here. Big oil. Maybe the tech lobby is pretty big, but not in the same way as pharma would be. And so they've managed to negotiate their way into a number of different deals to make sure that their carve-outs are there, their exemptions are there, including, the fact that until recently, Medicare could not negotiate drug prices with pharma companies.
Yep.
So long road ahead, I think, would be the answer to all of this. Almost undoubtedly, this doesn't cause any action to be taken. But if companies start taking action as a result of this, probably lands in the courts pretty rapidly. And I'm not sure just how far it will go. But suffice to say, the pharmaceutical companies that are impacted, their stocks are not taking any big hits as of right now, and so it does not seem to be getting digested as a terrible news for any of them. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have some trivia here. That's next on the Financial Exchange.
Tariff fever is in high gear. We've got the latest on what might be next and how long it might last. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Creating the right estate plan to help secure your future takes effort. Cushing & Dolan are experts in estate planning. Their new guide is called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. In it, you'll learn how to make the right decisions to always protect your assets while avoiding costly mistakes, any one of which could have a dramatic and damaging effect on your financial strategy. As an example, if you've created a trust more than 10 years ago and haven't updated it since, you're setting yourself up for problems. Don't take chances with the assets you've worked so hard to attain. Cushing & Dolan's new guide will help you address issues like this, so call right now, 866-848-5699, and ask for your copy of our new free guide called Detour Ahead, Estate Planning Blunders to Avoid. That's 866-848-5699, or request it online from their website, LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Is it a stroke? Even if you're not sure, act fast and call 911. Signs can include face drooping on one side, arm weakness, speech difficulty, or not making sense when talking. Time is critical. A stroke requires immediate medical care, which starts as soon as the ambulance arrives. So if you see any sign of stroke, act fast and call 911. Visit mass.gov/stroke, sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
If you missed any of today's show, catch up whenever you want on our YouTube page. Find daily show segments and full shows. Just go to youtube.com and search for The Financial Exchange. This is your home for breaking business and financial news. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod and Hyannis. Looking for a great vacation spot? Look no further than Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod. Located just off Route 6, Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod is perfect for a weekend getaway or a fun-filled family vacation. You'll enjoy first-class accommodations and dining, our incredible Fins Up water park, and of course, the gorgeous pageantry of the Cape. Visit MargaritavilleResortsCapeCod.com for reservations and more information. Time now for trivia on the Financial Exchange. Today is Stephen Colbert's 61st birthday. Colbert has been host of The Late Show on CBS since David Letterman retired in 2014. Before getting the Late Show gig, Colbert hosted a late-night show on Comedy Central for 9 years. Today's question: what was the name of Stephen Colbert's late-night show on Comedy Central? What was the name of Stephen Colbert's late-night show on Comedy Central? Be the third person to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer, and you'll win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. The third correct response will be our winner. See the complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
Either of you have any friends or family in Chicago? Ben and Paul?
No.
No, I don't.
Okay. So what's going on in Chicago right now is anyone with any roots to Chicago is drawing their line of connection to the new pope.
Oh, yes.
It's quite humorous. My wife did the exact same thing. She felt guilty to it almost immediately. She grew up in a town called South Holland, Illinois, that it's unclear whether he grew up there or the town over, but she brought it up at dinner the other night. The most recent news is that one Chicago pizza chain is claiming to be the favorite of the Pope because he did visit there, and they are developing their own menu for, to honor the Pope, including a Poperoni pizza, which is just top notch. But the alleged favorite in the pizza battles of Chicago, which are pretty serious, is Aurelio's. Not my personal favorite. I bring this up because I spend a lot of time in Chicago. Mm-hmm. My personal is Lou Malnati's.
That's the most famous deep dish in Chicago, right?
I think so, but it's tough to make that claim, I think. But Aurelio's has, I think, some 20-odd locations, and, developing the full Pope menu, including, I did like Poperoni pizza.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because my mother-in-law called us, my wife and I, the other night and said that so-and-so's brother went to Villanova and, like...
My wife's not even
Catholic.
Catholic.
Did the same thing. And so my wife and I
My wife's Lutheran.
My wife and I just responded, oh, cool. She's like, that's all you guys got from me? We're like, yeah, that's all we got. That's all we got.
So, yeah, if you know anyone from Chicago, I am sure you have already heard about their personal connection to the new pope and the excitement of all that. But moving on, piece from the New York Times. According to a tourism group, the World Travel and Tourism Council, which we've never quoted before on this program, so I'm not sure to what degree I should trust them. But nonetheless, they are claiming in a New York Times piece that foreign tourists staying away could cost the U.S. travel industry some $12.5 billion with a B dollars this year in foreign spending. It's expected that we're on track to lose that $12.5 billion, falling to less than $169 billion from $181 in 2024, which would be a fairly serious decline. And I don't know how much evidence there is of it yet, but most of the evidence that I've heard is primarily from a few clients that I have in Maine, for example. One of them mentioned that their kids manage a few Airbnbs, and they've seen a pretty big drop-off in demand so far. I'm sure you're seeing it up and down that Maine coastline, parts of New Hampshire. We weren't yet seeing it in the winter season, right? So, you weren't seeing it, for instance, for the skiing season at Jay Peak, I don't imagine. But summer will be the first time here where do you see any sort of drop-off in real demand for tourism to the United States as a result of some of the trade escalations that we've been seeing with Canada comes to mind for me. But, it's everywhere. I think Europe, if you're going to talk about who would normally visit the United States that's a little bit annoyed by all of this, Canadians and Europeans come to mind.
Right.
Specifically EU Europeans, not necessarily the UK, because that trade deal got kind of pushed through, so I don't think there's a drop-off there. But, those are two areas that have some pretty serious tourism.
Well, trade and also some immigration policy concerns coupled with that as well.
Yeah.
Right?
I suppose that's probably some of it,
they're saying just issues with border detentions and confusion over visas are deterring international visitors a little bit. That could perhaps contribute to it. It's $2.36 trillion of tourism we saw last year in the United States for 2024. 90% of that was domestic. The claim is that international travelers, according to the U.S. Travel Association, spend $4,000 a trip. That's 8 times more than domestic U.S. travel. So a little bit more lucrative there, those international travelers, allegedly.
My doubts on all of this, here's my counterpoint. When I talk to my au pair, we have somebody that cares for our children. She's from Brazil. She's on a special visa to work in the United States and care for my children right now. Number one thing I asked her what she wanted to do while she was in the United States, go to Disney.
Mm-hmm.
Disney telling me right now that their bookings for their resorts and for their parks are just fine. Their most recent earnings report said that they are looking good in terms of bookings. There's no real drop-off. And I just look at that as a pretty decent barometer of where spending is going to come in terms of total tourist travel in the United States, because you go to those resorts and there are definitely a lot of foreign travelers that are booking that trip in order to attend a Disney theme park. And I know we've been hearing here and there about the drop-off. I'm not convinced that we are seeing it right now in terms of what everybody's claiming.
No, I've heard more the other side of that argument. Like, for example, the au pair you're speaking of, concern about if she were to visit Brazil and come back here. I've heard people very hesitant to do that trip, but not the other way around.
Agreed. Speaking of travel, United facing some issues, specifically with the Newark airport. United Airlines, if you're not aware, operates about 2/3 of the flights through Newark Airport, and they have been struggling a little bit, let's just call it. Newark Airport, with their outages on their radar systems, which there's been 2 of them over the last few weeks. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
There's just these kind of, look, the United CEO is going out there and trying to calm the public and say, look, it's safe. All the planes are equipped with technology to be able to see the other air traffic that's out there. But again, like the stories that I'm hearing reported, right? The Guardian's reporting that Newark Air Traffic Control had 3 air traffic controllers on duty instead of 14 during the most recent time. There's all these questions about safety and flying through Newark Airport. Now, part of me would say, hey, flyers are going to try and not fly through that airport. And frankly, there's 3 of them in New York that you can choose from. And so you've got a few options there. On the other hand, a couple of years ago, we had doors flying off airplanes, and it did not scare anyone away from flying. And so I think they need to do some PR. I think it's embarrassing how crippled and just outdated our technology is that gets used in these airports. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface and starting to learn about it, but the internet service has to be downgraded when it goes into the airports in order for these old machines to actually be able to handle the stuff that comes in. It's really kind of embarrassing how far behind we are on this stuff, but I also just don't think it's going to scare anyone away from flying.
No, I don't think so. There's too many flights in demand on a daily basis to erode that.
So, maybe just coincidental here, but in order to satisfy their customers who are worried about that Newark airport, United is adding caviar service and luxury jammies to their super premium travelers. So
I know you were mentioning to me off air that Armstrong was going to get in on this type of travel come 2026.
No, you misunderstood. We are booking some stuff on Spirit. We must have crossed the lines there. Yeah, I don't think that they do offer caviar on Spirit. I didn't fully look at the menu last time I flew on them, but caviar just didn't seem like it was on the list. But yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to spend 10, 15 grand on a seat, you damn well better serve me some caviar in that first class cabin.
Who's going to want the Lux Jammies? Who is going to go for those? Unless, I guess maybe if they're new, I'm sure obviously they'd contract with some other company out there to offer them. But
yeah, but sitting in that first class reclining seat in my United jammies eating caviar while you stare at all the riffraff going back to the coach. I mean, that's what it's all about, right?
It's
that
gotta
status
be
symbol.
Got to be a heck of a feeling.
I hope it says first class, like as a big badge right on the jammies so that they can rub it in your face a little bit more while sipping that champagne and eating the caviar. We'll have the trivia winner when we come back, folks. Stay tuned.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Congratulations to the students and staff of Emergence Academy in Springfield, Massachusetts for their winning submission to the state's Power of Presence initiative. The school's amazing video will help spread the word about the power of students being in school every day. To see the video and learn more, visit us at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, 2 of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
solid financial plan has many layers, and trusts are often a core piece. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Understanding the various kinds of trusts that exist can be extremely beneficial to your strategy. If you're retired or nearing retirement age, a trust may help you with a wide range of issues such as asset protection, tax efficiency, and avoiding probate. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and ask for our new guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. We'll discuss a number of different trusts and the areas in which they may help and how to determine which one may be right for you. Even if you already have a trust in place, this guide can provide a description of certain issues that may arise and could help you decide if changes are needed. Call us today at 800-393-4001 and get your guide today, or you can request the guide online at armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutzke with your Financial Exchange Quick Tip of the Day. And today we're talking about the top estate planning mistakes to avoid. Todd, what is the downside of adding your kids to your accounts or adding their names to your real estate deeds as a joint owner? Won't this avoid probate?
You're absolutely right. It would avoid probate, but there are better ways to avoid probate than just doing something simple, right? Simple isn't always better. Throwing a name on an account or adding a designated beneficiary or a joint owner on a piece of property might not be the best way to go. Here's the problem. If you name one of your children as a joint owner and you have 3 children and you put that child on just because it's convenient and they're geographically close to you, well, you could be accidentally disinheriting your other children because this property, this asset will only go to that child. That child doesn't have to give it to the other kids. So that's a problem. And if you put your name, if you add a child's name to your real estate, now you're exposing it to that child's creditors, that child's potential divorces. That's never good. And plus, you've lost control over it. If you try to sell it, you need that kid's permission, and half the money would go to that kid. Please, folks, set up a trust, fund your trust much better than just trying to do it shorthanded and just give away assets or adding names to accounts.
Todd Lutzke and the estate planning experts at Cushing & Dolan have written a brand new guide that details the estate planning blunders to avoid. You can request this brand new guide by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699, or you can request it from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Our trivia question today was, what was the name of Stephen Colbert's late night show on Comedy Central? Your answer, The Colbert Report. Today's winner is Sal in Buxton, Maine. He has won a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt. We play trivia every day here on the Financial Exchange. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
We continue to get hints as to what is coming out of the president's trip to the Middle East, and he's about to take the stage on a announcement of boosting U.S. investments in a number of different areas. I've seen numbers thrown around, $600 billion. The one that's on the screen now is $1 trillion, and the president just began speaking. But one beneficiary of this seems to be NVIDIA, whose stock is moving up about 5.5% today, dragging markets up alongside it. The NASDAQ now up 1.6%, the S&P 500 up nearly 0.9%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, America's most useless index, currently down 1/3%. It's just an easy target.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're our punching bag.
The fact of the matter is, though, that the S&P 500 is now in positive territory after yesterday's and today's gains for the year. Yesterday, we finished right around where we were on Election Day of last year. And I guess it brings me about a few different healthy reminders when it comes to the stock market. One, This period especially has been defined by attempting to make investment decisions based on a single person's tweets. The lesson that I have is what a dangerous game that is to play as an investor. Maybe not as the president. I know how he likes to negotiate, and I'm not saying he should or shouldn't do it that way. I am saying that if you are an investor who's trying to interpret what does this all mean for the economy and me, it was a pretty challenging couple of months here to navigate. The interpretation, remember, go back to where we were in February. Markets were reaching all-time highs. We have not yet climbed back to those February all-time highs, by the way. But markets were hitting all-time highs. At the same time, the president was talking very hawkish on trade. It was threatening the tariffs that he later followed through with. And once he followed through with them, made it pretty clear that he was serious about them and that they were there for the long term. Turned out long term lasted 1 week. The most severe tariffs that were out there lasted 7 days before they had to be suspended. The higher Chinese tariffs, I think we lasted maybe 4 to 6 weeks on all of it. The lessons out there for investors, I think, are a fewfold. One, trying to manage a portfolio and adapt to that changing narrative on a day-to-day basis. Look, if you timed it perfectly, then you've made some money this year, right? If you managed to get out and then get back in after markets were down by 19%, then good for you. You're 1 in a million on all of this. The bigger lesson is, look, nobody had any idea that the president was about to cut tariffs on China by by 115%. And if they had known, then markets would, they would have known that, hey, markets are going to rally a good 3% on all this news. But for those that have been concerned about their portfolios this year, I don't think that any of this indicates to me that those concerns should be wiped away. But I think a lot of the emotional investing that I've been hearing about really since the president was elected has a lot of room for error. And that goes both ways. I've talked to folks who got more aggressive when the president was elected and lost money almost immediately on their investments. I've talked to folks who were so spooked by the thought of tariffs and the actions that the president was taking on that front that dramatically pulled back their exposure and ended up missing out, especially if they did it recently. And so here's my takeaway. Any emotional investing by its very nature is bad investing. It doesn't mean you will never make money on it. It just means that long term, it's not a great strategy. If you have been facing down the last few months with confusion, as many people have, in terms of what do I do next? What does this mean for my personal scenario? How are all the changes at the tax level going to affect me personally? And what do I do next? We'd love to talk to you here at the Armstrong Advisory Group. The number to talk to one of our real-life human beings, 800-393-4001. We have a really methodical process when we sit down with somebody for the first time, where we sit down, we really go through a lot of questions about your personal situation. It's not just how are you invested. I know we talk about that a lot on the show, but it's what's your family situation? What is your plans for retirement? How can we help with any of these things? Do you actually fit into the mold of what it is that we do here at Armstrong? And there's usually a second or even third meeting before that final decision is actually made on whether to move forward. If you could benefit from that type of consultation, that type of free consultation, again, the number for Armstrong Advisory Group is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
There's a piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning. Doctors warn accountants of private equity drain on quality. Quote, you could be next. So, here's what's been happening in the medical space for anyone that does not work in that area or doesn't know somebody who does is private equity has been gobbling up all sorts of hospitals, emergency rooms, and doing what private equity does, which is make it lean, make it efficient. And that has allegedly led to some problems out there. And I'll give the example of someone I know personally who works in emergency room medicine. And the point that they made was, frankly, they made the point to me that they're trying to leave the industry. They said, with the pressure that I have on me to churn through patients, to not appropriately dedicate my time to them and then pretty much be disallowed from following up with them on recommendations and follow-up diagnoses that I genuinely am not sure I'm able to fulfill my Hippocratic oath. And so the individual I talked to is like, I'm going to keep doing this because I have nearly $500,000 of student loans that I'm in process of getting forgiven by, because they've worked in a public hospital system for a decade. But beyond that, they said, I don't know if I'm going to look in pharmaceutical or some other area, but I don't know that I want to continue to be a frontline physician. And it had purely everything to do with what's being described in this article of the role private equity is playing with hospitals and doctors pretty directly contradicts what I'm trying to do for my patients. I don't see that as much of an issue as the same degree of an issue for accountants. I will just throw it out there that I don't see how that's going to relate one for one.
I could see possibly the ethical challenges that could come as a result of that. You have PE firms that are private equity firms that may be investing in accounting practices and as such making them leaner or perhaps encouraging them to take on riskier than normal clients in order to boost profitability. And that puts accounting firms in precarious positions to audit firms that they wouldn't necessarily have considered as
that's a fair
before.
point. Yeah, I mean, there's not much that I can think of on the individual or corporate tax return side that is going to be a problem if a private equity firm drives for more efficiency. But yeah, in the search of new revenue, if they push to not do a real audit on the financials and then it turns out it's the next Enron a few years from now, the person working on the audit probably never works in the industry again, and the company that did the audit, well, depending on how big they are, probably is just fine and walks away from it scot-free. But that is some of the risk here when you're talking about what does private equity do? They combine firms, try and lay off a whole bunch of staff that do the same things and focus on where can we get new customers, how can we service them for a cheaper price point.
And turn around a business usually in a very a shorter time horizon than normally you'd operate a business as a founder, for example. They're just trying to eke out a return to make sure their general partners and limited partners get their prerequisite capital back plus the return that they've been promised. So it doesn't align with the ideas, particularly the ideology behind healthcare, which is, providing good care to many patients out there, is running contrary to the idea of running a streamlined, profitable business that is focused on efficiency and perhaps cutting. It kind of goes against one another in often cases.
Yeah, there's a few areas that you just don't. It's not the primary goal. Medicine's one of them.
Yep.
Defense is another.
Sure.
But this private equity story, it's everywhere, right? It's at dentist offices, it's at veterinary offices, it's at financial advisory firms' offices. I personally probably get 5 to 10 emails from private equity-backed firms looking to merge companies together every week.
Wow.
It's not. I'm not saying they should or shouldn't exist. I think they should certainly exist, and I really see no issue with what they're doing in our industry. But what they are doing across many industries, to be really clear, is buying up really small companies that probably aren't the most efficient out there, combining them together, laying people off, and packaging them together to sell them for a larger price point. And that works really well in some areas that haven't previously had such exposure.
A couple of the corporate acquisitions that had been done through PE-backed hospital systems led to a wake of bankruptcies, including Steward Healthcare and Prospect Medical Holdings. So that's where some of the concern stems from.
Yep, no doubt. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Stack Roulette.
Tariff fears continue to grip markets. Get the latest straight from Wall Street right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Estate and financial planning go hand in hand, and one of the most common ways to keep that bond secure is with a trust. Our new guide, called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, is available right now. In it, we'll discuss the various types of trusts that exist and how they might benefit your planning process. Trusts provide a number of different protections for your assets, including privacy, control, and tax efficiency. If you're retired or nearing retirement and have concerns about your financial strategy and whether or not a trust may help, call us today at 800-398 800-393-4001 and ask for your free guide called Trusts and Your Financial Plan. Learn about how a trust could make a difference for you and your family by calling 800-393-4001. That number again is 800-393-4001, or you can request the guide from ArmstrongAdvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod is perfect for your next New England vacation. Located just off Route 6 in Hyannis, the resort has everything you need to enjoy an incredible week with your family or a quick weekend getaway. Along with first-class accommodations and food, Fins Up Water Park is packed with aquatic adventures that will keep the kids entertained for hours. The summer season is coming soon, so make plans today for a fun-filled vacation at Margaritaville Resort Cape Cod. For more information and to book your trip, visit MargaritavilleResortsCapeCod.com.
This is Michael Valila, Adjutant of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. We focus on the people returning from service, not their specific illness or injury. Our number one goal is to make sure our veterans have the necessary services they need, be it physical, emotional, or financial, so that their transition can be seamless. You can help our great American heroes as well by making a donation today by visiting dav5k.boston. That's dav5k.boston.
The United States Virgin Islands is consistently voted one of the top Caribbean destinations. And recently, two of their beaches, Trunk Bay in St. John and Maggins Bay in St. Thomas, were voted a top 10 best beach in the Caribbean at the 2025 Traveler's Choice Best of the Best Awards. From the pristine beaches to its world-class dining, rich history, incredible golf, and perfect weather, the USVI has everything you need to make memories that will last a lifetime. From the moment you arrive, you will fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. There's no money to exchange, and travel from New England could not be easier. Whether you're looking for a romantic getaway or a family vacation, the U.S. Virgin Islands is the perfect place for your next adventure. Go to visitusvi.com right now for more information and to book your trip. The USVI is America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
The Financial Exchange Show podcast drops every day on Apple, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. You're listening to the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Quick follow-up on the tax bill making its way through the Republican House. A quote from New York Republican Representative Nick LaLota, quoted in Politico this morning. Quote, the legislation as currently written is dead on arrival. He accused his party's chief tax writer of acting in bad faith. Quote, the bill is dead effectively on the floor. This all has to do with the state and local tax deductions. So LaLota, alongside 4 other blue state Republicans from New York, California, and New Jersey, they've been pushing hard for a big boost to the $10,000 state and local tax cap that is currently in place. And those 5 at least calling for this bill to be dead on the floor and to be done more. The proposal that was mentioned was a raise threefold to $30,000 cap with a $400,000 income limit, and that apparently not enough for those Republicans, at least, to get the bill over the hump here. The reason this all matters, of course, is because 0 Democrats are intending to vote for this bill, and so you can have very few defectors to get this thing done. So, don't count any of these tax changes in until they are actually in, and we'll have to continue to digest this as time goes on because you could see massive changes to what's even being proposed right now.
Definitely.
What do you have for us, Paul?
Well, I've got a little bit of news on the streaming front. We've got 2 providers over the course of the last several days announcing that they will be launching new streaming services.
Thank goodness.
Just in case your life wasn't confusing enough, Fox is going to be launching a new streaming service, Fox One, before the NFL season. It's going to combine its news, sports, and entertainment content before the NFL and college football seasons this fall. It's going to be put together at a quote-unquote healthy but not a discounted price, according to Chief Executive Officer.
What the hell does that mean?
Great question. The reason
that could be anywhere from $7 to $40 a month.
The reason that I bring this up, along with another story that came out with ESPN announcing that they're going to launch their streaming service titled, you guessed it, ESPN, coming for $30 a month. This will combine together Disney's other streaming services, Disney Plus and Hulu. If you want the 3 of them together, it will cost $36 a month. The standalone ESPN will come again this fall for $30 for the first 12 months, and it will offer, this differs greatly from where it is today, access to its live sports content. The ESPN Plus offerings are more niche offerings of UFC and other areas out there. And I just feel like my initial takeaway that the cable providers have to be, not like they didn't see this coming. They've had declining subscriptions for a long period of time, but the affiliate fees that you generate from ESPN and some of these other heavy hitters that have live sports really carry the significant costs of what you and I, or for those people who pay their cable every month. And this pushes someone like myself, who is pretty much just locked into watching live sports and really not a lot else on cable, further and further away from keeping up with the cable subscription, to the point where its erosion seemed like it's imminent in the next several years.
I just don't know. I'm with you, but we are now getting to the point where you have to
be bundled
so
back
many
together.
So what was the ESPN service going for?
$29 a month, $30 a month.
Which, by the way, the fact that you can get an ESPN subscription for the same price as a Nessun subscription, which is $29.99 a month, is preposterous. That is crazy. I know we're big New England sports fans, but clearly the ESPN one should cost more. There's so much more content.
That's a teaser, Ray. It's the first 12 months.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that it won't be $45 2 years from now when we talk.
So I guess the question is, all right, how much can I save if I have Disney Plus, Hulu Live TV, and this all together? And should I be considering all of that? It seems just absolutely crazy.
It's a great question. We should run through it quickly. Okay, so that's $36 a month right there. If you go Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN, you have to have Netflix for most people out there. That's what, 18, right?
So it's only $36. Well, that's not Hulu Live TV. That's Hulu, their streaming service, which has good content, but it's not the live TV option.
It just says Hulu, Disney Plus, and Disney's other streaming services. So you got, let's call it, maybe I'm off on that, $17, $18. So right there, you're at $53 between those two. Throw in Amazon Prime, most people have with the membership. HBO Max is probably $20 a month. You get to $73.
Yeah, we're somewhere in there.
Where's Apple?
I don't know.
Do you have
$10 to $15 a month?
Okay.
I'm the only person I know that doesn't have Netflix. Yes, I do have Apple. I didn't have HBO, but I resubscribed because my other package that I have does not have Nessun, or does not have TNT. And the hockey playoffs are on TNT, so I can get that through an enhanced HBO subscription, which I'm going to cancel after the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's
like
frankly,
the hangover gif of Zach Galifianakis running all the multiple calculations at the blackjack table. It's just, your head goes spinning.
Just gotten preposterous. Yeah. But to your point, I don't have a cable package.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got this Fubo thing, which I only subscribe to because it has Nessun. And I just figured, hey, if I'm going to pay $30 a month for Nessun 360, I might as well pay like $60 a month for a full slate of channels that I can go and stream. But now I'm adding in HBO. Now I'm adding in Apple TV and all these other services, and I'm probably right back up at a basic cable
For your
package.
kids, is it all YouTube that they consume when they watch stuff?
YouTube or Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Those are the only two services that we actually
Yeah, our
use with my
kids are
children.
not going to know cable at all. I mean,
Yeah.
my kids, it's all YouTube.
It's so bad out there in YouTube land. That is all the time that we have today on the Financial Exchange. Markets remain in mixed territory, but S&P and NASDAQ moving strongly higher. We've got the S&P 500 still up 0.8%. NASDAQ up nearly 1.6 now, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average right now off 155 points, a little bit more than 0.33%. We will be right back at it tomorrow, folks, so stay tuned. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you then.
Trust can play a key role in your financial strategy, and understanding the different kinds and their purpose may help you make the right decisions for your overall plan. Hi, this is Chuck Zada from the Armstrong Advisory Group. Trusts are utilized for a variety of reasons, but the most basic use is to make settling an estate easier. Trusts have the ability to bypass probate, which can save you significant time and money while allowing your assets to be distributed directly to your beneficiaries. Our new guide this month is called Trusts in Your Financial Plan, and you can get it by calling 800-393-4001. Learn about trusts and their possible benefits to your financial strategy by requesting your free guide today. That number again is 800-393-4001, or request it online at armstrongadvisory.com. That's armstrongadvisory.com.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.